Your stash is looking good
thanks,
too.
yeah.
It gets a lot of action in the comments.
Right.
A lot of traction.
Yeah, who knew?
Somebody put get rid of Matt. Have your stash
Might
as
be
a
the
co-host.
co-host.
They're like, your stash has more charisma than
your stash needs its own representation.
representation. Dracula.
Hi, and welcome to the Total Recall Show. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, and Fantastic Four Grand Design.
I'm Matt Zeoli.
And today we're talking about Dracula, but
yes,
we're not talking about Dracula the movie. We're not talking about Dracula the novel by Bram Stoker. We're talking about Dracula the stage play.
The stage play, yes. So I saw Dracula the musical.
Okay, yeah.
And I've seen
That'll be a different episode, but
it's one of my favorite things I've seen live ever. And Dracula, for one point, he had no shirt on. He had two pierced nipples.
Okay.
And I think he had a sock stuck in his crotch.
I don't think that was Dracula you went to see.
It was like the lead singer of Typo Negative or something like that.
This Dracula stage production, it originally was in London, and then they brought it to America. It was in New York, and the New York production is where Bela Lugosi got
Saw him
discovered.
in the credits.
That's where he came to stardom. And it was like a hit play. Audiences were terrified by his portrayal.
Oh my gosh!
And you wonder what's that even mean? Because it's it just sounds like, okay, that's a lot of bullshit. Nobody's scared of somebody up on a stage. Yeah,
he was like, boo.
Right, exactly.
And somebody pissed their pants to the ground.
Yeah, one of the things was they had nurses standing by to revive people who passed out.
They said he was scared of him on stage because he was wielding a knife to the crowd. He was threatening the crowd with a weapon or something. They're like, oh yeah, that's why he was terrifying.
Never read it before. I always enjoyed the movie. I read the novel in college, and it's kind of the same as the movie. I enjoy the earlier parts, but then when you get deep into just them in London, I'm not as interested and stuff. But so the play, it's the whole thing is that London part, that part of the movie that you kind of fall asleep during and stuff. That's the whole play. But it's just sort of reading the play, it's so tight. It's so tightly written, and the liberties that Hamilton Deane,
name.
Yeah, right. If you're gonna write plays, get a name like Hamilton Deane. Yeah, his real name is
it's Biff Stinkhammer.
Right. Yeah.
He's I need something better than this.
Yeah. So Hamilton Deane, and when he he takes liberties with the text, but you're adapting it for the stage. So that first part of the movie where Mr. Renfield is going to visit Count Dracula, and that's off stage. That's already happened at the start of Act 1, Scene 1 in the play. That's in the past. So it's in medias res, and it's kind of informative just as a storyteller, because plays have different conventions because there's so many limitations. So it's really cool to see something that's got these intense limitations, and how to make a compelling story with it, and it really works. So by the time the Dracula play starts, Dracula's already moved into London. Mina Harker is already dead. Now that's another liberty they took with it, is that it's in the book and in the movie, Jonathan Harker is engaged to Mina. And then she's got the sister Lucy, and Lucy is kind of the first one to fall under Dracula's spell, and then Mina happens later. In this, it's reversed. Mina is already dead. She's become a vampire. You find out later in the story, and then and Lucy is the one that he's engaged to, and Lucy's sick. So we're at the house. Lucy's sick. Dracula lives next door. Dracula's the friendly neighbor.
He's Joe Zuzu.
Yeah, right. He's the nosy neighbor who comes in and eats all the food in your refrigerator.
He's blah, I want to suck your blood. I mean, I want to raid your fridge.
So she's sick, and then and Renfield's there. It kind of illuminated the story to me in different ways. Because that middle part is I just so blank out, but it made it very compelling. And I kind of learned more about Renfield and what his role is in all this and stuff.
I love how in the play too, like it mentions Renfield, like when they were his like disorder where he's like eating the bugs to try to like, they called him like a zoof something or other, like he was trying to get their energy from these like creatures he was eating.
Yeah, he would suck the blood out of flies, or he would take flies and feed them to spiders and get the spider fat with blood and then drain the blood out of
Forever now, like when I see Renfield, I think of Peter McNichol from Dracula Dead and Loving It.
Okay.
So I see him as Renfield for all time.
I mean, like you know, for me, I picture the guy from the Todd Browning film, but also I kind of like, and like reading this play, I was seeing like Peter Lorre. Like Peter Lorre could have played Renfield.
Well, in the play too, like I like in the plays when it gives you like your description of the character, like how, you know, who you should cast for this.
Right.
And I'm looking at this like, okay, if I was going to be in this play, I'm like, Christ. People in like the local theater, it's like you'll get like, I'm gonna play the lead. Or I'm like, I gotta think about like who I play, and I'm thinking maybe Van Helsing, because he says 40-ish.
Yeah.
I'd have to play. I already look like laundry, but so I'd play a little like I'd play older.
Yeah, it is rough like that. Van Helsing, like we're getting to Van Helsing age.
Because I was like, Seward, he sounded like meaty, but he said mid-50s.
Because I think the guy who plays Van Helsing in the Todd Browning movie has got to be like in his 60s.
Yeah,
you know.
So I think he's older.
Yeah, and
Van Helsing.
I mean, I didn't look up the ages, but I'm sure we're older than Bela Lugosi was. And, you know, Van Helsing shows up, and he's like, "Here's the problem with Lucy. She's under the spell of the vampire." Now this Count Dracula keeps showing up saying, "Hey, everybody, what's going on?" And like nobody's like, "Oh, he's the vampire." They're just kind of like, "We're looking for a vampire. Here's this nice Count Dracula who keeps showing up, showing concern." And they're like, "We would be worried about all the attention and concern that Dracula's showing towards Lucy, but he's so old. He can't possibly do her any harm."
"Hey, everybody, what's going on?" "Oh, Lucy, looking green around looking pallid. What's wrong, Lucy?"
And then there's like. It's so like I don't remember this in like the book or the movie, but there's these like rumors. There's this like kind of like a Jack the Ripper kind of thing that's in all the tabloids in London, where it's like there's like some weird lady who's giving chocolates to little kids, and you're like, what's going on? You know, and they don't want Lucy to read about it because they feel like it'll upset her too much, but she like wants to read about it. And you know, it's kind of like a mystery. Like the suspense is really good. I think at the end of Act 2, like it kind of like ends with like, you know, Dracula like striking a pose or some kind of like scary, you know, and off-camera screams.
That's where like everyone passes out in the audience.
Where the stage direction talks about there's like a bat flying in the window and stuff. And I'm wondering, like, is it like a bat on a string coming in?
Oh, I love it.
Or is it one of those things you see in a play where everybody's like, "A bat, look, a bat," you know, and there's no bat. They're just like, "Oh, there it goes.
There it goes.
And it went back to, you know, if it's that, or is it like a guy in a bat costume or something, or like somebody all dressed in like a black body stocking, you know, holding like a bat on a wire.
He holds them off. He's like, he grabs Bela Lugosi, Batman. He's like, "Who are you, man?" He's like, "I'm Batman."
There's a lot of like Dracula in that Tim Burton Batman. I mean, just in Batman in general, but in that Tim Burton Batman, it's that's Tim Burton's Batman is like an honorary, you know, like Universal monster movie. You know?
Oh, I love it. And like the cathedral and everything. Oh God, like seeing the bat in the belfry. Like the Joker's like
there's a bat in my belfry. The other thing they did. Like to modern, like I really love the liberties they took with it, and that's kind of become a thing with Dracula too. There's like this BBC Dracula show that I was watching like maybe a year or two ago that was so good, like the way they like modernized Dracula and stuff. But like in this, it's like we've all seen the scene in the movie and in the book where he's transporting all these boxes of Transylvanian dirt on a ship, on a boat.
Creepy,
you know, and then the whole crew dies. In this, it's like, hey, there's airplanes now, you know? So he came to London in an airplane.
It's always creepy when, like, a coffin is being shipped anywhere in, like, something... Like, that freaks me out. And, like, with Dracula and vampires, like, I loved, when I was little, like, the Wolfman and the Hulk. Those were, like, fascinated me, but vampires like freaked me out. Well, like that scared me because in like any kind of like show that featured vampires, there was one show called Nick Knight. Do you remember that?
No, I remember Nick at Night.
This was a vampire show called Nick Knight, but I think there was another show. It was some vampire thing where like it scarred me. I don't know what it's from, but somebody's tongue like opened up the end of it and bit somebody.
Okay.
And this was like the 80s, so it was like really. If anybody knows what the hell that is from,
okay,
like it's beyond.
Yeah, you might have just dreamed it. Like they take advantage of the scene breaks and the act breaks. So in between Act 1 and Act 2, now it's like Van Helsing has made some inquiries about Dracula and he's heard back, and I don't remember this either. Like Dracula's first name, which was like Vovio Dracula or something.
Vidal Sassoon.
Yeah, Vidal Sassoon Dracula. That's why his hair's like all slicked back. If you don't look good, Dracula doesn't look good.
Vla, I want to suck your moose.
Van Helsing has done some homework, and he hears back that like no one has lived in Castle Dracula for 500 years. Vovio Dracula died 500 years ago. There is no Count Dracula in the castle. So this guy is, you know, the vampire they've been looking for. That was what Van Helsing needed to know.
I still can't get over the researching Vovio.
Vovio Dracula. Yeah, did you, like, you'd think we would have known. The other thing with Dracula is, like, how Dracula is a vampire, but he's also a werewolf. You know, like, he turns into, and, like, I feel like that's not broadcast enough. Like, that needs to be, like, the twist. I'm sure somebody's done a movie, but that would be such a great twist where it's like, oh yeah, that's not going to work on me because I'm a werewolf too. You know?
See, that always I would forget that aspect. So anytime in like a a Dracula movie or a vampire movie when the vampire would turn into a werewolf, I'd be like, oh yeah. But I also would get mad. I like when their powers stay in their like legs.
Well, yeah, because these things got so like codified, and that was like another like seeing something like this where you're seeing that those rules get established and played with, and like. There's like crosses and stuff in this, crucifixes to ward off. But then Van Helsing has his like secret weapon, which is the host, like the communion wafer.
Yeah.
The wolfsbane bothers Dracula, the cross bothers Dracula, but the Eucharist, the host is like
really gets to him.
Yeah, it's like, and he said he got like dispensation from the bishop or from the pope, so it's almost like this, like the holy hand grenade or something. Yeah,
he's like, I got this. When Dracula comes up to take communion, I'm really gonna stick it to him. Like Dracula like opens his mouth and closes his eyes. He's like, I'm gonna slip him this. But like with the werewolf, it's wolfsbane for werewolves.
Yeah.
Silver bullets, silver for the werewolf. Full moon triggers the werewolf. But then with vampires, it's like garlic.
Yeah, there was no garlic in this. No garlic. Like I think like the wolfsbane and the garlic got they got substituted as the mythology got solidified.
Silver for vampires is vampire.
Yeah, silver. But again, like we're going by Dracula.
It's tough.
It's early. It's before like other people kind of sat down and figured. So like you're hearing about this mysterious woman who's giving chocolates to kids, and then like you actually like read like the story. They actually read the story in the thing, and it's like she gives chocolates to kids, and then she like bites them, and then they come back like unharmed, but they've gone through this like scary experience where this weird lady
insane.
Like bit them, and so what you're realizing is like, and Van Helsing is like, that's Mina. That's Mina Seward, I guess is her last name in this. That's Mina. She died, but she became like a full vampire, which is kind of like the process Lucy's going through in this. Like she's not there yet, but if she dies, she'll become like a full vampire in full control. So she's going around doing that. And what you realize is like Dracula had to leave Transylvania because everybody was on to him. Everybody there knew his game, and so he had nowhere to go. Like he was in his end game,
Vlam, there's too much heat on me.
Exactly.
I need to get down.
I need to go down to the
Florida and cool my ears.
Yeah, where's the place in the Everglades?
I need to go and cool his ears.
Yeah, exactly.
Till the heat blows over.
And so he comes to London, on an airplane with his, because the airplane can beat the sun. It can get from Transylvania to London before the sun. It's tight, but he does it, and that's how he got here. But like now that he's in London, in this town where nobody believes in vampires, nobody's ready for him, nobody has like their wolfsbane and their crucifix and stuff ready for him. He's just gonna propagate like he's gonna take over London. He's already, he's going around, like draining blood here and there and turning people into vampires. And then he's got, this woman Mina, who he turned into a vampire, is now turning the children of London into vampires. It's
super creepy.
Yeah, super scary. Yeah, it's high stakes. Like the stakes definitely like keep amping up.
I think that's kind of like maybe Stephen King got like the idea with Salem's Lot, where it had like children vampires or kids being turned into vampires.
Yeah, because that's
right
in here.
from this.
So it's just this scary thing, and it makes it that much more urgent that like they have to defeat Dracula. And so then there's the break between Act 2 and Act 3 where there's like another jump where it becomes like a quest story where they're like, okay, he's got 6 boxes full of Transylvanian soil that he has to sleep in. And we got to find all 6 of them, and we got to dump holy water on all of them so that they're spoiled for him, so he can't sleep in them. And so then when you get from Act 2 to Act 3, they've already done that. They've already gone on their quest, and they got all of them except for one. There's one more box of dirt left. So it is. It's like it's kind of cool the way
That's kind of like why I love Dracula 2, because the quest element. Because I like it's like these separate, like it's like Van Helsing teams up with like all these different people come together. They're like, we've got to do this thing. I just love it so much.
Like growing up with like the Castlevania game, like that's what it kind of like emphasized was like, you're on this quest to defeat Dracula. And so then they're like, we got to find that last one, and we need to. If we don't defeat Dracula, it's all over for London. It's all over for and then and things really like the climax really goes full climax, and Lucy keeps having this like internal battle of like being under Dracula's power, but then trying to resist it and stuff. And then like she goes in and she tells Jonathan, like, don't kiss me, don't whatever you do, don't. And then she goes and she's like, give me a kiss. And then she's like about to stick it to him, and then Van Helsing sort of comes in and stops the.
When we do the play, I'll do Van Helsing, and what character would you want to get in on?
I mean, Dracula.
Dracula,
of course. That's the guy. Dracula's the guy.
Awesome. Well, I'm the Italian Van Helsing.
This production of Dracula, you gotta, if you're gonna perform it, you gotta like kick up some ducats to the.
To the.
You gotta pay.
I saw in there to order the sound effects, and the soundtrack is like $22.
Okay.
Somewhere it's like, but I think the order form expired in like 1986.
Well, I think there's like a bunch of things that's awesome.
Isn't that
$22.50 for the sound effect cassette tape? I think Dracula is like coming up for public domain. Like this play might even be coming up for public domain soon. There's that one year that's starting to come up. That's getting closer where things are like a bunch of cool things will be entering the public domain. But I mean, yeah, if you want to do your own Dracula thing, you can. You just can't do this exact one. And there's like the final battle with Dracula, which is just. It's just really cool, and it's kind of like you can see the staging, how it works. Like a mirror breaks.
Oh, that's awesome!
Like that was another. They took that scene that's in Transylvania where the guy cuts his finger, and then Dracula freaks out about the blood, and they put it in here where like Van Helsing, cuts his finger on like like he's cutting open a box or something, and then Dracula's like, ooh, yeah, and everybody in the story is like. All worn out because they keep giving these constant blood transfusions to Lucy, to keep her alive.
They say like Lucy's like having bad. They like freshen her up, get the color back into her cheeks, and then they're like she has a bad dream and she's back to being pallid again.
Yeah, and Dracula is like he's playing all the angles because he's like hypnotizing the maid. He's and then Renfield is like his little spy in there because like Renfield kind of has the run of the place because. They live in like this asylum or this hospital, and so Renfield's one of the patients. So he's not, like straitjacketed or something. He's like free to walk around.
He's like, I'm just putting this ladder up to Lucy's window.
Yeah, and Renfield's kind of like Gollum in Lord of the Rings. He's kind of struggling. Like he wants to be good, but he's it's.
Like that became like a trope too with like the vampires, like what is like your familiar or something, like your little like henchman that you possess.
He talks about how he's got like his wives back in Transylvania, like he's got a bunch of wives back in Transylvania, but he's going to make a bunch of wives here and Lucy's going to be the queen of his wives, and if you defeat Dracula, then all that stuff's done. Lucy's free, and Van Helsing talks like between chapters 2 or Act 2 and Act 3. Van Helsing's like, oh yeah, I drove a stake into Mina's heart, and now she's in heaven, and she's fine and stuff. And so yeah, there's just like the cool like kind of final, and like, you know, as being part of like a stage production, it's like there's like a bookcase in the middle that like at the end like opens up, and there's like a secret passageway that leads to from like where they live next door to Dracula's secret.
They're like,
his final coffin, where they're gonna have this final battle, and so great. And it's almost like this last scene. You can kind of picture how it's staged, because you have your sort of elaborate set that's been the set for the whole play of this, like, you know, living room of like the hospital or whatever. And then when they're in the crypt, you know, like it goes black, and then you could just have this like little thing off to the side or whatever, of them like going down these creepy stairs.
This reminds me of that Castle Ravenloft, Dungeons and Dragons. I can just see like the little like the setup. I love a good secret passage too.
It was just such a fun read, and it just kind of it got my like creative juices flowing of like just like different ways of viewing something. You know what I mean? Like you know, I haven't read very many plays, but I want to read some more just because I got so much out of this.
Me too. This was a good call, man. Like it was like a different angle. Like I was like vibing on something, and like when you think about, you're right, opening up different creative like chambers. Because like with like we were talking Hateful Eight or like Glengarry Glen Ross. It's like, how are you going to create drama using like characters in like one location,
a limited location, and they like. It's all through like dialogue, basically. Like especially when you're reading like maybe there's more when you're watching a play, but when you're reading it, it's just the dialogue that's like leading you through it, and it's, you know, it's just like another, like with Halloween and stuff, it's just like another lens to like look at this like classic that we've like experienced a bunch of ways, and it's making me want to watch the movie again, and it's making me want to read the book again.
Me too.
Because I'm kind of like, you know, there were things that just didn't make sense to me before that now is like kind of like crystal clear.
I only read the book about 10 years ago.
Okay, yeah.
It was like you mentioned, public domain, so it was like it was like free on the Kindle.
We'll have to do a separate episode about the Dracula book. Of course, it's like, this is the Total Recall show. It's way easier for us to read the Dracula stage play. But yeah, we'll have to do a separate episode for that. Maybe for next Halloween or something. Definitely worth doing. Again, like anytime I try to watch the Dracula movie, I always get kind of like, you know, I start like passing out in that middle part. But now it's like I have a much better understanding of the stakes, and I want to see how much of that is actually in there, because I feel some of this felt so fresh to me that I'm like, I don't think, you know, like I definitely don't think there was a, you know, like a mysterious woman who was giving chocolates to kids and inviting, which was like kind of the scariest part of it.
You remember that movie, The Witches?
Yeah, great movie.
Angelica Houston was like, "Hey, little boy, want some chocolate?"
Yeah.
And it like always freaked me out. Yeah. That just made me think about that when you were mentioning that. You know what I think is what the doctors might order? Bram Stoker's Dracula.
The
Francis
Coppola one. Yeah, I remember seeing that in the theater, and like, yeah, that's worth talking about. And yet, like, my memory of that is like they kind of rearranged some stuff. Like, didn't they have like, instead of having Renfield go to Castle Dracula, they had Harker go to Castle Dracula. Yeah.
And I was always fascinated too, because I'm like, just like when we talk about The Thing, trying to figure out what's like causing the bad thing. Yeah. It was interesting seeing like, I'm like, okay, where's Dracula, this vampire thing, like start? Yeah. So I'm like, at the beginning when Oldman like he like stabs the statue or
right, yeah, all that prologue stuff was really interesting too. Yeah.
So that I'm always curious, like I want answers, man.
Right, exactly. Like, yeah, what's the real story of Dracula? So here's another piece of the puzzle. There was one scene where, like, you can totally picture how the staging goes on, because it's like Dracula's got his arms outspread with his cape, his back turned, and then like Renfield and Jonathan Harker grab, you know, each one arm or one side of the cape, and then they pull it back, and Dracula's gone. You know, like they're just holding this like empty cape in their hands.
I love it.
Yeah, some David Copperfield stuff.
He's like, for my next trick, I'll make the Statue of Liberty. This should be, or he does. It's like Dracula comeback special, like 76. He's like down on his knees.
I'm just a hunk of burning.
He's like
Dracula 69.
69.
I want to eat your peanut butter. You've been watching the Dracula the Play edition of the Total Recall Show. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, and Fantastic Four Grand Design.
I'm Matt Zeoli.
And you can follow me on Twitter at Tom Scioli or on Instagram at Tom_Scioli.
Follow me on Instagram at cinema_tune.
Okay, we'll see you next time.
Blah.
Yeah.
I want to raid your fridge.